60,000 BC. Imagine ruling Europe for 300,000 years, hunting animals that weighed more than a car, being strong enough to snap a grown man's arm, having a brain about 10% larger than that of modern humans, and then going extinct in just 20,000 years because of a bunch of skinny guys from the south. What's he talking about? Don't react. He usually calms down eventually. Neanderthals first appeared in Europe around 400,000 to 450,000 years ago. Over hundreds of thousands of years, they evolved a unique anatomy. Nature put a tons of effort trying to turn them into a perfect sphere. And then humans came along and ruined everything. They had shorter limbs, a broader ribcage, and a wider pelvis. All of these traits helped reduce heat loss, making them exceptionally well adapted to the harsh climate of the Ice Age. Neanderthals were incredibly muscular. It's a shame they didn't live long enough to see gym mirrors. Their bones were thicker and more robust than those of Homo sapiens, and their muscle attachment sites were much more pronounced. Their shoulders, backs, and forearms were especially powerful. Neanderthals had huge, wide noses. I think they just had a personal grudge against anything narrow. Scientists, however, believe it was related to warming and humidifying the air they breathed. Interestingly, modern humans living in cold climates tend to have narrower, longer noses. The internal structure of the Neanderthal nasal cavity likely warmed and humidified the air efficiently, while their broad external nose may have been linked to higher oxygen demands compared to Homo sapiens. Despite a common myth, Neanderthals actually had larger brains on average than modern humans. Can you imagine their reaction if they found out that tens of thousands of years later, modern humans would be making up stories about how primitive they were? Neanderthal brains weren't just larger, they were also shaped differently. Some scientists believe that part of the extra brain volume was devoted to processing visual information and controlling their more massive bodies. However, there is no direct evidence that Neanderthals were either less or more intelligent than Homo sapiens. Neanderthal hands were larger and more robust than those of modern humans. Sometimes I feel like evolution just got lazy and decided to make them wider in every possible way. They had an incredibly powerful grip, which was essential for hunting, woodworking, and making stone tools. At the same time, Neanderthals were just as capable of precise hand movements as Homo sapiens. The structure of their thumbs allowed them to perform delicate and complex tasks. Apparently, simply making them stronger wasn't enough, they had to be highly skilled as well. Neanderthals made sophisticated stone tools. They carefully selected the right type of stone and planned the shape of each tool before they began making it. Meanwhile, skinny Homo sapiens could probably fill up just by looking at food. Neanderthals fed on bison, horses, reindeer, and even mammoths. Their heavily built, muscular bodies required enormous amounts of energy. Who would have thought that beneath the image of these tough men, were people willing to care for severely injured members of their group for years, despite the cost to themselves and the community, and then they would go and give those exact same injuries to the neighboring tribe. Some Neanderthals buried their dead. Scientists still debate whether these burials were accompanied by complex rituals. However, the deliberate burial of the dead is now considered a well-established fact. Do you know who's responsible for making people learn English in school? FOXP2, a gene associated with the development of human speech. Neanderthals had the same variant. And that's not the only reason. Their hyoid bone and inner ear anatomy were also remarkably similar to ours. Most scientists today believe that Neanderthals were capable of speech. However, there's no way to determine how complex their language actually was. If they were so well adapted, why did they go extinct? Listing their advantages is my favorite part of the story. Did you really have to ruin it? Those blasted Homo sapiens. By the time they left Africa around 60,000 years ago, Neanderthals had already been living in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. If a Neanderthal looks like someone put him through a hydraulic press, then Homo sapiens looks like someone tipped him over onto his side. Compared to Neanderthals, Homo sapiens were taller, lighter, and had longer limbs. This body structure was less effective at retaining heat, but it made long-distance travel less energy-intensive. Instead of doing proper manly things, Homo sapiens spent their time gossiping. That turned out to be their greatest advantage. They talked so much that information spread from one group to another. Along with it came knowledge, resources, and new technologies, traveling hundreds of kilometers. As a result, new ideas spread much faster. On top of their already small population, Neanderthals tended to avoid outsiders. They lived in small groups of around 10 to 30 individuals and may have been hostile toward neighboring groups. This led to inbreeding and the accumulation of harmful genetic mutations, while also slowing the spread of new technologies. You know that feeling when you put on a jacket in the morning because you expect it to be cold, only to end up carrying it around all day? That's basically what Europe was like for Neanderthals between 70,000 and 40,000 years ago. Over a relatively short period of time, cold steppes gave way to forests, only for glacial conditions to return again. As the climate changed, so did the vegetation and the migration patterns of the animals Neanderthals depended on. Neanderthals relied primarily on close-range weapons. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, frequently used projectile weapons, which largely neutralized the Neanderthals' advantage in strength. You know, if I had a spear, I'd totally beat you. Okay bro. I'm just saying, if we were fighting with spears, you wouldn't stand a chance. Just wanted you to know. Humans and Neanderthals didn't just fight each other. They also interbred. Modern humans carry Neanderthal nuclear DNA, but no Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA has ever been found. There are several possible explanations. Children born to a Homo sapiens father and a Neanderthal mother may have been infertile. Or perhaps Homo sapiens males simply weren't interested in Neanderthal females. Another possibility is that such offspring were so rare that their maternal line eventually disappeared. Personally, I think that's nonsense. The real explanation is obvious. Homo sapiens women simply found Neanderthal men irresistible. As a result, most people living outside Africa today carry about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genomes. So, in conclusion, I believe they should have built stronger connections with other groups, shared technology and resources, and increased the genetic diversity of the species. Can we just go to sleep?